Hello and welcome back. My name is Levi, and I am putting together a self-cast Rolling Magma build this season. I've already put out one video thus far, so if you haven't seen it, feel free to check it out. That one was much earlier in the league, just showcasing what was capable on maps and how the progression is moving along. Today I've made several upgrades in comparison to the last video, but I tried to limit my cap to a certain divine level as to not basically overinvest too much. I wanted to put together the investment at sub 15 divines or so. Originally I had planned between 5 and 10. I was around 7.5. I wanted to upgrade my wand. I couldn't find any wands that were suitable, and so I upgraded my scepter, and I spent 5 divines or so just self-crafting that one. Anyways, let's go over the bosses we'll be fighting. So obviously, as you can see, I've got the Elder put together here, the Shaper, I have the Syrian Exarch, the Eater of Worlds, the Maven, and then Cirrus. These are going to be non-Uber versions today. I will make another video later on down the road showcasing a Rolling Magma self-cast build, defeating all of them, and we will get there. It's looking pretty good thus far, but I just wanted to go over a quick gear analysis before I got into these fights, and then at the end I'll go a little bit more into the build, and I'll actually unveil and talk about some of the other pieces that I have in mind for later on down the road. So if you are interested in watching these boss fights, definitely feel free to stick around. I will just simply be doing them back to back as quickly as I can. You will see every miserable mistake that I make, hopefully not too many, but there probably will be a few, or maybe if I'll get lucky and I'll be able to defeat them all deathless, and so we'll see how that goes. So starting off with my pride and joy, the only thing that I've actually self-crafted, and it's hard to call it a self-craft. I spammed Essence of Woes until I got the desired suffixes, and then I went ahead and used the crafting bench to lock in the suffixes, scoured, did the craft multi-mod, and then slammed on a random exalted orb. I felt pretty proud of myself for even going that far because I've never crafted anything to that extent before. And so that wasn't too bad. It took me, I think, 83 deafening Essence of Woes. So for my scepter, I picked this one because I'm doing Rolling Magma and I wanted to get rid of lesser multiple projectiles. And so I picked one that had a crucible tree where at the very end, Rolling Magma has 100% more area of effect. So the AoE is huge. That was an amazing change I had made, and it'll open up a lot of options in terms of what kind of gems I can use on my 6th link. And so what I put together, increased spell damage. I had landed +1 to all fire skill gems on the 83rd try. I crafted multi-mod on there. And of course, as you can see, I slapped on crit strike chance for spells, global critical strike multiplier, and unfortunately I was very unlucky with the random exalt slam at an increased physical damage. It was still a 22% upgrade from my previous one that I was using. My previous one was only a 15 KS wand. I just couldn't find anything on the trade that was worthwhile for what I wanted to do, and so I just found a scepter that had the appropriate crucible passive tree on there, and it's working out great. And so I hate to say it, this is probably not able to be replicated in future leagues because I don't know if they'll continue on with the Crucible after this league. They typically do away with a lot of that stuff after the league that it was introduced, but who knows? We'll see. Either way, you could still do a very good job and have a lot of AoE, but you probably have to use something along the lines of increased area of effect, or I can get an enchantment on my helmet at some point that increases the AoE, and there's other ways you can enhance the AoE from the skill tree naturally, but this really simplified that option for me. Excuse me, I'm going to have some difficulty talking too much today. Allergies have been really bad here. But moving on to the gloves, nothing really spectacular about the gloves. At the time, I needed a lot of strength and dexterity. It has a very nice life roll and a good T1 lightning resist roll. And then, of course, as you can see, I used some Syrian Exarch and Eater of the World Grand orbs to be able to get spell suppression, and I want to unnerve. If you're not familiar with unnerve, excuse me, if you unnerve an enemy, they take 10% more spell damage. As you can see here, I'm holding the Alt button over this. And also, at some point, I know that I can get an enchantment on my belt that when enemies are unnerved, I believe it increases my critical strike chance by 50%. I'm looking to try and grind for that sometime in the near future. My belt, I just wanted something that kind of helped boost up my flask a little bit in terms of duration. As far as the other mods, just simple life and energy shield. I have no resistances on my belt. As far as the boots, I've had the boots for quite a while. Some pretty low rolls on the resistances. just needed strength and some modifiers and some movement speed. It could certainly be significantly better than what it is. A lot to be desired here. But I didn't want to spend too much currency upgrading. I do have a decent amount of currency right now that I could have thrown another 7 or 8 divines at the build and bumped it up to about 19 to 20. But I didn't want to do that just yet because I want to show you guys what is possible with about 12.5. And before I'd crafted this, it was sitting at 7.5. And the only reason it cost that much is because the craft bench, it costs 2 divines to lock in suffixes and then 2 divines to lock in the 3 craft multi-mod. And I had slapped a divine orb at the end because otherwise it only would have been 4 because the roll on the increased strike chance for spells was 54%. I wasn't really satisfied with that. I got lucky on a single divine and I bumped it up to 68 without really messing up the other modifiers that much. Not that there was much to mess up because 2 of them didn't matter. The rings, nothing spectacular about the rings either. I picked these up for, I think, maybe 5 chaos earlier in the league. I have not upgraded them. Same thing with the other ring. I did purchase them with the intention of having an open suffix, so that way I could craft on minimum endurance charges. So earlier on, while I had very good resistances, and I did fix my chaos resistance from the last time I made the video, it is now at 75%. My fire resistance is 90, and most other of my resistances are 76. I was having an issue with physical damage. Physical damage was doing too much. I didn't have enough armor. I didn't have enough damage reduction. And so I went ahead and made sure these had open suffixes because I always do the syndicate, at least in terms of picking up as many items as I can to unveil them to at least unlock the crafting bench. If you don't do that, I recommend doing syndicate. I did not allocate any skill points into it. I would most certainly do it just for the sake of obtaining the unveiling items. Unveil them so that way you can unlock all of the mods in your crafting bench. They're very, very handy. As far as the shield, this is still a 2 chaos shield. I did go ahead and run one of the Crucible trials where I could add a Crucible skill tree to it. And so I'll probably go down this path here. Not that one. I'll probably try this one out. I'll try the guard skills with increased cooldown rate recovery, but it has 50% reduced duration. It would be kind of neat to kind of toy around with a guard skill that may only have a 0.6 or a 0.7 second cooldown. And so I'd be curious to try that to see how that works in comparison to the other one. I know that if I don't like it, I can always just scour it and remove it. That modifier's okay. I'm overcapped in cold by over 20 anyways. The lightning, that would allow me to re-roll with the harvest bench, another elemental resistance to be able to make up for it if need be. But getting 36 lightning resistance, basically just as I begin making gear changes, would help eliminate one category. I'd have to overcap in cold, but it's typically a little easier to try and focus specifically on 1 or 2 than try to focus on all 3. The idea for late to end game will be to get a melting flesh. Is it melting flesh? Yeah, whatever that piece is that drops your overall resistances by 70, but increases the cap after -4 to whatever the cap of your highest resistance is. I think it's melting of the flesh. Anyways, so I plan on getting that piece later in the league. In order to do that, I'll probably need to upgrade at least 1, maybe 2 of my rings to have at least all T2 rolls on resistances on them to be able to compensate for the -70. And once I do that, then I should have about 88 to resist all. I'm at 90 right now. There's a shield that I'll probably end up picking up at some point that will add a +3 to fire, even though it will add -2 to either lightning or cold. There was a +4. There is no +4 available. Who knows? I may just endlessly grind to buy a bunch of cheap Phoenix Mosaic Kite shields and run Crucible after Crucible after Crucible until I get the desired skill tree with +4, if need be. And so the +4 would completely negate the melting of the flesh and would allow me to probably get 90 to resist all in every category. Other endgame pieces, I plan on upgrading my body armor at some point to Skin of the Lords. I am looking for Iron Will. Please don't take it from me or try and sell it to me for, 35 divines. Unfortunately, the color scheme that I need is in the 30 to 35 divine range. I could get one cheaper, but some of the notables that it applies onto the armor would brick my build, and so it's not useful. There are a couple notables that I could use. Avatar of Fire would be perfectly acceptable. It wouldn't do much in terms of damage for me. But Skin of the Lords +2, then I would switch my Inspiration support to an Empower, so that way I can get a +4 or a +5 to my primary skill just by that alone from that one skill gem, plus the +2 from the armor anyways, onto Rolling Magma. So ideally, I would get Rolling Magma up to around, well, I'll put it properly around 31. And so it would be a significant upgrade damage-wise to be able to do that. Helmet, I'm still kind of toying around with the idea for a helmet. This one has no life, it's just resistances. I could get more life. I may toy around with doing Crown of the Inward Eye, and then probably just spamming Trials of Ascendancy until I get the desired enchantment that I want, which is probably AoE. I could get flat damage, but AoE would be a little bit nice because the AoE is large enough now I can typically land every bounce on them most of the time. But if getting the extra 24% might guarantee every bounce on a larger target every single time, regardless of how my aim works out. But that's kind of a gear overview and what I'm looking forward to further on down the road. There's a couple other pieces as well as far as jewels that I may be picking up at some point, but I'm not entirely dead set on what I'll need to do. But Skin of the Lords would be the next big step, and then getting an Empower, even just a level 3 Empower would be perfectly fine for now. Once I get the currency, I'll do an Empower level 4, and that will be a huge damage spike overall. Then once I get Meld into the Flesh, that would be able to max out my resistances, or at least very close to. I think right now, if I were to do it, it put me around 87 in every category. And then I just have to swap out my rings for rings that have either base level T1 res on all resistances. I could probably get away and be a little cheap and do T2, but then I may need to crank it to 2 rings. I could probably do 1 ring with making some other gear swaps on some other pieces that are all T1, but I know those are a little bit pricey at the moment. Anyway, so without further ado, let's go ahead and we'll start off in this order that I kind of have it planned out here. We'll start off with the Elder. That's an easy fight. Move to the Shaper, the most boring and tedious fight because you have to fight 4 map bosses and it's just a lot of running around. His phases are long. Most people don't like to fight him. I do because I know it's guaranteed currency at the end of it and his fragments are worth a great deal. Plus he has a chance to actually drop a decent orb and some other okay-ish gear along the way. At some point later on in the league, every boss that I fight will only be Uber versions. But until that point, these are going to be the regular versions. And so I don't have any of them super juiced up. I'll go over the Incandescent Invitation. I'm trying to avoid any significant life modifiers. AoE can be incredibly dangerous, and significantly more damage can be dangerous. Vulnerability might be a little rough, but he doesn't do that much physical damage. And having +3 to endurance charges to have them permanently at 3 the entire time for boss fighting has been nice. As far as the Screaming Invitation, this one's not going to be too bad. Him getting into Frenzy Charge isn't a big deal. Chilled Patches of Ice on the ground might potentially be problematic if I try and dodge his Die Beam, but if I time my guard skill, Steel Skin that I'm using properly, it's not going to be too bad. So I do have it set up for casting damage taken. When I boss, I take that off and I manually cast it. I have it linked to increased duration support. I have a 20% quality on that because it gives an extra 10%. And then on this, I have the cooldown to about 2.8. Yeah, 2.83. And so if you time this properly, I used to use Molten Shell. I probably will. Later on in the league, I will be running a low life build. Once I actually get the armor piece and my resistances, then I'll be able to run Pain Attunement, and that's how we're going to get the burst damage up. And also, another significant piece I'll get at some point is an Awakened Unleash because it adds an additional seal. And so each subsequent shot adds significantly more damage. And so, yeah, once again, if you missed the last video, the way I'm putting this together is going to be doing alpha damage, single shot alpha damage, and how many bounces can I get on the same target. It's not about cast speed, and, build it how you like. Do it whichever way is most fun to you, but this is how I chose to build it this season, so it's a little bit different than most other people out there. But it's going to be fun. And so, once again, I always make these videos with the idea that people who are maybe watching this have never done some of these boss fights before. For me, endgame bossing is what I like to do. I'm not huge into mapping. Mapping probably can be a bit more profitable at times, but I just love fighting bosses. That's what I like to do, so I try and learn the mechanics. And I try and get better at the game in terms of the bosses or whatnot. And at some point, I'll get to a point where I can kind of trivialize a lot of these lower level ones and darn near insta-phase them. But at the same time, for me, that's what it's all about. So the Elder is pretty simple. He's got a few attacks that can be a little bit dangerous that you have to avoid. When he ascends up into the air and does a spin where he's throwing out little ice orbs, as soon as that finishes, he's going to swoop down upon you and do a ground strike that can do a lot of physical damage. So if you don't have a lot of resistances to physical, he can potentially one-shot you, but it's pretty easy to avoid because you can see it coming. So just make sure you save a flash or use your shield charge to get out of there, but just know it's coming after that particular move. That's the only one that he does that's very dangerous. He does a try ice shot for kind of an auto attack. It's not that dangerous of an attack if you have decent resistances and at least a somewhat decent life pool. As you can see, I'm sitting on about 6,000 overall HP between energy, shield, and health. But let's go in here. I'm going to apply my Assassin's Mark and Enfeeble on him, which guts his damage. So I'm trying intentionally to save up my seals. And so, because I want as many seals on him as I can. And so this ability he's doing here, that Shockwave, can kill you if you're outside of that inner ring there. And so the inner ring is where you want to be. So see that? He's doing that move. He's going to come down. And he did the slam. I went completely off screen and avoided it. During this phase, he opens up portals on the top and the bottom. Do a single cast in the top, single cast in the bottom. And you can see how large the AoE is with that Crucible Atlas on this one, which is why I wanted it. I don't even know if I'm using slower multiple projectiles right now. I might just be doing my Awakened cold damage. And if you're asking yourself, why are you doing Awakened cold damage? It's because I needed a green gem that just simply added flat damage. And there really weren't a whole lot of options for that one. And so Awakened cold damage, which is a very cheap gem, does the trick pretty well. We want to kill these little minions because they create, if they stick around too long, that little black goop on the ground that stays there permanently until the end of the fight. It does do a decent amount of damage over time if you sit on it, and it also slows you, if I remember correctly, as well. But if you kill them in time, they won't really have much of an opportunity to place it onto the ground. As you can see, I can simply just one cast most of these when I have my seals charges maxed up. Need to move to the top, and then cast here. If I cast a little better, I can hit both of those at the same time. So we're going to wait until that thing spawns. There we go. The AoE is large enough that it's so nice to have this size of an AoE. Okay, so he's ready to go. Hit him with Assassin's Mark again. He's going to cast his, I think, Tentacles in the ground first. Nope, not this time. He switched it up. And I could hit him with Punishment, but I don't need to in this case. He's going to die. At the end of the fight, he explodes. You have to stand in this ring. If you're outside the ring at the end of the fight, that Shockwave will kill you. And so keep that in mind. Once the fight is over and Zana pops up that red bubble, make sure you go into the bubble and stand there. Sometimes it can be a little complicated because the red bubble will appear, and right before he dies, he casts one of his Shockwave Novas that you have to go stand in the center of that ring. I don't know if you have to do it. I stay in the red bubble until the initial Shockwave goes, and if one of those happen to pop up at the very end, I'll go stand in the middle one because it might very well kill you if you are outside that ring, depending on how much effective HP and your maximum hit taken is. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going over the gear. I'll just pick it up, and I'm just going to dump it into my stash because right now the point of this video is to not be looking at gear. We're just going to go to my tab here. We're just going to dump all this stuff in, and I can review it later. So we have a Fragment of Terror. Nothing great there. And am I running? Yeah, I'm not even running slower projectile support. So 242. Cold damage is pretty good. So it goes up to 244. The difference is with slower projectiles, every single bounce in the ground can hit him, especially with that increased AoE. So we want to make sure we're actually running that. So fortunately, the Elder, I think, only has effectively maybe 40 million HP, so he's not too terrible to deal with. But we're going to do a Maven Witness on Mr. Shaper here, which can make things slightly a little more problematic, just because he can obtain heals, she will clone him, and they'll just have more abilities spamming out there at a given time. So it's always good to have a movement skill if you don't already use one outside of your flashes. Your flashes should be more for emergencies. And so, there we go. Look how close those bounces are together. Casting Punishment on him, and he's dead in 2 casts. So, believe it or not, my listed burst damage is only about 1.4 million. So it's not insanely high. But here's the deal. If I land every single bounce on him, I believe that burst damage, every bounce does 1.4 to 1.5 million. Now, if I hit them with Punishment, which I do, Punishment only works once they get to half-life. And so Punishment increases the damage they take by 58%. If you have the quality on the gem, you can get it to be 10% more effective. So I think it goes up to around, what, 63, 64? So it's not bad. Oh, this guy. He's not fun because he just has phases, and so you have to endure the phases. He can kill me, if I remember correctly. If he gets his ground slam... Oh, hold on. Which heart is it? There we go. Might help if I actually pay attention. Sometimes I get busy talking and not busy, focusing on what I need to do. But as you can see, he's not a difficult boss to fight with this particular build. Not anymore. It used to be that he could potentially kill me, but he could. I'd really have to make some mistakes, though. I cast across the heart because I'm trying to get as many hits as I can. Okay, he's going to go up here to his last heart. That one's dead. I'm going to hit him with... Yeah, he's done. As soon as I hit Punishment on him, remember the difference between more damage or take damage. If they take increased damage, or if it's a multiplier of more damage, that's a multiplier on top of your existing max damage. If it's increased damage, it's simply additive. Just a couple things to remind yourself of when you're looking at damage multipliers and kind of how they work. I know he heals on this thing, but I don't think it's going to matter. Hit him with Punishment, and he's done. 2 cast. See, that is exactly what I wanted to do when I had this build in mind. And at some point, I'll get to the point where I can 1 cast every last one of these guys. And I'm very much so looking forward to that. And I'm hoping that the alpha damage cast for a single cast can potentially begin to phase Shaper, at least the regular version. I know trying to insta-phase the Uber versions, they have 70% damage reduction, 70% damage resistance to all types of damage. And it's just a flat resistance, and there's no way to negate that. So they effectively have almost triple the HP, if not more. So with him, you want to stay pretty mobile. He does have an ability where he goes up into the air, and it creates kind of a black crystal over you. And that means he's going to do his Shaper Slam. And so this is the ability. If you want to dodge away from that, that's a pretty heavy physical damage hit. And unless you can take about 20,000 physical damage, it's going to be problematic. So for this phase, he's just simply spawning ads out. This is a great phase to obtain more flash charges. We want to keep Zana alive and healthy. If she gets too injured, I don't think she'll die, but if she gets too injured, you may not have the bubble phase during his, I can't remember the name of that particular phase, but he sends out all these little purple orbs all over the map. So we're just going to dash through this as quick as we can. We're not a super fast character. Kind of made him to be a walking tank. See if I can make that. Yep, okay. So, nope, okay, went the wrong way, go that way. Yeah, use those flashes to try and dash across the openings there. It will help expedite your path to the end of the map. The longer that you're in this place, the more health Shaper gets back. It's honestly not a big deal, but if you're already struggling damage-wise to try and take them out, you don't want to waste too much time in here. Faster moving characters will be able to get through this much more quickly. So I don't care about most of these guys. There we go. I think I'm there. There he is. So, oh yeah, he's dead in 2 casts as well. This is beautiful. I haven't actually played him since I've made these upgrades, so I haven't done a trial run or a test run yet to give me an idea of exactly how much damage I'm going to be doing. So this is my first playthrough of Shaper since I've made my upgrades. So this is the phase where you cast out all the purple balls. And so you want to be inside the red bubble here. On the Uber version, you don't get this. Those do a lot of damage. Make sure you step out. I'm going to hit him with my Assassin's Mark. He's going to slam me. Dash away. Now, do your best to avoid those orbs. They do a lot of cold damage. I'm going to hit him. I hit him with punishment a little too early. I also run Enfeeble, and that's what I use on most bosses, but he's below half-life now, so now the damage is really stepping up. So, yep, we're going to the next map phase. This is perfect. This is going, honestly, much better than I had even imagined. So, keep in mind this is with about a 12.5 divine build. You don't need to have a 5 divine weapon in order to do this. So this is very feasible in the 5 to 10 range for beating all these bosses. The big portion is that I have the recovery and I have the damage resistance relatively for a pretty low cost overall. Now, am I intentionally trying to make the most effective builds in terms of cost versus damage and survivability? No. I'm not. I'm simply just picking the skills that I like and seeing how far I can take them. And, you know, this season, particularly, I've actually seen a lot more Rolling Magma builds in terms of, like, video content that's out there. And I love it. I mean, people have come up with some very creative ideas on how to use Rolling Magma for a great map clearing ability, which, honestly, is pretty darn impressive. I'm going to go through and just pop these things now, just to get them out of the way. I know it lays ice down on the map, and okay, so there he is. Going to hit him with punishment, because I'll get him there momentarily. Okay, so this is the problem with if you decide to run the Maven Witness on these crazy guys, because the clone will still be casting those insane abilities. I'm trying to lead these balls here outside of the middle area. You don't want them in the middle, because if they're in the middle, that's where you have to stand during this particular phase, and we really don't want to be... We really don't want those there during the middle phase, the ball phase here, because then it doesn't give you... Ooh. Oof. Wow, I think I actually just dodged that one. Or blocked it, possibly. Because I know for a fact I can't take that much damage. Is she healing him? She's healing him. Which, that's fine. We'll get him gunned down one way or the other. Yeah, make sure you time your flash better than mine was. And, yeah, he's going to go down here. So let's keep that punishment on him. It lasts about 12 seconds, I think. Now I can flash him. Even with the extra heals, he still wasn't that bad. I got lucky surviving that. My damage resistance to a physical hit, while moving, is 64%, even with 4,700 armor. Thank you to the endurance charges. The endurance charges give me an extra 12% there, because I believe it's 4% physical damage reduction per charge. My chest piece, I forgot to talk about my chest piece. I picked this up for 3 divines. It gives me 8 additional physical damage reduction. I may have gotten a steal on it for a 3 divine chest piece. It didn't have the appropriate colored sockets initially, but for this, fortunately, Chromatic Orbs was able to solve that. I got lucky. I can't say that lucky. It's an armor energy shield, so armor and energy shield will default normally to blue and red. Armor is hard to get off of red. Evasion is hard to get off of green. And energy shield can be hard to get off of blue, especially if you need a lot of the other colors. And so I use the crafting bench to try and slam that to the appropriate one. Usually my strategy is if you have a piece of armor that is only evasion or only energy shield or only armor, if you need to obtain 2 or 3 of different colors of the same color, let's say you need 3 green on an armor piece, that's armor only. If you're using the crafting bench, oftentimes it's more effective to do a 1 step down on the craft bench. So if you need 3, you only force 2. You don't force 3. 3 is really expensive to force anyways. If you force 2, you've got a pretty decent chance of at least one of the other slots being a green one, and it can potentially save you a lot of currency. But, I mean, I've seen people slam trip green when they need a trip green and a blue, and they kept getting, you know, trip green and 3 red, or trip green and red, 2 red and a blue, and they waste 3,500 chromatic orbs. It should never, unless you're very unlucky, should never have to use that many chromatic orbs on any armor piece to be able to get the desired gem slots. Unless, of course, you're trying to get, you know, 6 blue links on a on an armor piece only. But I don't know why anyone would do that. I don't know if I've ever seen a build that does that. But yeah, it can be tough at times. It can be really tough if it's only a specific armor type. So if it's only armor versus armor and energy shield. Fortunately, that defaults to blue and red, which that's mostly what I need. So land in a green. I did it in 3 chromatic orbs, not even using the crafting bench. Got very lucky. I felt pretty good about it. So let's pick up these pieces. Let's dump them in the stash. And I'll look at this stuff later, and we'll move on to the next one. So far, so good. No deaths to Shaper, but Shaper doesn't normally cause me a whole lot of problem. Quite frankly, I probably should have been killed by that Shaper slam. I don't know how I survived it. My max damage taken in terms of physical damage, I think, is around 12,500, 13,000. I had to have blocked it. It did almost no damage. If I didn't block it, I definitely would have done damage. And I know for a fact that slam does more than 12k physical damage. So I am a little bit flabbergasted as to how I survived. Now on to my least favorite fight, the Searing Exarch. If you watched any of my videos from 3.18, I struggle with the ball face. I think I died 3 times. Now granted, I was doing the Uber version and those balls hit a lot harder. I didn't even use Steel Skin a single time. The Shaper doesn't do that much damage in a single hit with most abilities, and my regen is insanely high. So let's see here. I don't have my Golem up. Okay, so my life regen and energy shield is around 2,200. So needless to say, I regen both life and energy shield at the same time, so I have a lot of regen. Even while running Righteous Fire. I have 90% resistance to fire, which is great. And so with that 90%, I think running Righteous Fire only takes away maybe 400 in each category, so I still, even while running Righteous Fire, have about 15 to 16. I think it's actually 1,600 regen, even while running Righteous Fire. So it's not that devastating to my health pool. All right, this guy. Most things that he does probably can't hurt me. The ball phase where he's invulnerable and you have to dodge the waves of balls. This is where I will actually be using Steel Skin if I know I'm going to take one to the face. And I most assuredly will be taking one to the face. So hopefully I don't get killed by just his auto attacks. I would think my fire resistance is high enough that I can withstand that. But moving on. So let's get him down. First thing we're going to hit him with is Assassin's Mark. And so because I want to make sure I have as high a crit chance as possible, I'm going to hit him with Enfeeble. And so Disintegration is a non-issue. Cleansing is a non-issue. This ability, because of the high fire resist, is a non-issue. He's going to do his... Yep, so I need to move away from this one. So Incineration is this massive AoE ability. So we're going to hit him with the Curse again. We want to minimize his damage. Okay, so here we go. Unfortunately, it's in the middle. I have to make sure that I have my... Sometimes less is more with these, right? So I have a lot of fire resistance, so I'm sitting pretty good. I'm going to dodge here, walk through this, blink over here. I found that less is more in this. There's sometimes where you have to move a great deal, but the more you move around, sometimes the more problematic it can be. I don't know how I ate that one. Okay, that was actually pretty good. I think having 90 fire resistance is helpful. Oh. Maybe I should begin listening to what he's talking about. I should not have died to that. Yes, goes to show that that particular ability will most certainly kill you. And so I flashed the wrong way. I meant to flash backwards the other direction. And so let's go ahead and hit him with this. Actually, we're going to hit him with Punishment instead. And I'm going to turn Righteous Fire back on. I'm going to put my Golem back up. I think he dies in this phase no matter what anyways. Okay, so that one we had to do a little maneuvering. Okay, so we're eating several here. But because of our high fire resist, I was able to eat several and still be okay. Okay, let's not die to the most embarrassing ability, the one that's the most telegraphed. Oh, there we go. I was actually somewhat paying attention that time. There we go. So we'll pick those up, and then we'll go back to base. I feel bad about that one death. That was a silly death. I definitely shouldn't have died to that thing. Oh. Didn't mean to put them in that stash. I wanted to put them in this stash. So that way I can, more easily identify which one they're in. All right, so that one's out of the way. That one's on me. That one's me screwing up. That was not him being good. That incineration ability, I think it was incinerate. That one definitely should not have killed me because I shouldn't have been standing there. And that one's pretty easily telegraphed as well. So I feel bad for that one, but it's okay. We'll see if we can make up for it on the Eater of Worlds. Eater of Worlds can kill me as well. His die beam can be a little dicey at times. But he also has an AoE ability that is a little more telegraphed. I don't know why only one wall came out on that one. And so we'll keep an eye out for when he does his move where he flies high into the sky. And so this one, he pulls tentacles up out of the ground. Wherever you were, just dashed the other direction. See, so that one hit hard. That was just diving. Hunger is the death ball. He does it typically twice. Don't get caught in that. Okay. This one's a little bit more technical. You have to go stand in these orbs during this phase. And when you stand in the orbs, stand in them until they explode. And then it... So he's invulnerable again. I lost my golem. That's to be expected. When he says flesh, you want to dodge that. For this one, just run a different direction from wherever you were. So, trying to focus a little bit on... There we go, Hunger again. He's going to do it twice. Hunger's always done in waves. So I cast my guard skill that time. He's almost done. Don't let these balls hit you. It causes an effect which is called drowning. Believe it or not, something called drowning will kill you. So he's going to do it again. I hit him with punishment. This is when he's going to go down pretty quickly. So... see if we can get him here before he... There we go. I took a bit of a gamble to see if I could Culling Strike him. I wasn't quite sure if he was low enough for the Culling Strike, and if I had messed that up, that's a move that would probably have gotten me killed because I would have been within the range of his ground AoE attack. Anyways, so nothing crazy in terms of loot or gear thus far. Now we're on to the last two fights. The Maven is honestly one of the most fun fights for me. It is a lot of phases on that one. At least Eater of Worlds, there's not a whole lot of phases. And then Cirrus, I dislike beating Cirrus every single league, again and again and again, because Cirrus has caused me so many problems over the years. He sucks. He's not a hard fight, though. At least he shouldn't be. We'll do this one. I'm debating whether or not I should run Righteous Fire. Because if I get hit with the degen, it kills me. Somebody told me about a strategy. If I run a flask that I manually cast that removes burning on the flask use, as soon as I get hit with the degen, I can use that flask. It'll cut off Righteous Fire, and it won't drain my health down to 1. So I don't know. We'll run Righteous Fire. It'll make it go by for these first phases a little bit. He doesn't have the degen or the stopping regeneration until at least the very end. So this fight's pretty technical. So we're going to hit him with Assassin's Mark. She's got a Cascade of Pain. That's the only thing that can really do good damage. So we use our guard skill at that particular moment in time. These orbs that come out, we'll take them to the corner, let them all hit, and pop in the corner. We don't want to litter the field with those orbs. Those orbs are not a good thing. They're a ground degen. Cast my guard again. Now I can use punishment. Yeah, so, and then she's done. Then Mr. Brain steps into the middle. Do not... Oh! Might help if I remember the phases myself. I've only fought him 100 times. So, during this portion, going to hit him with Enfeeble because punishment won't do any good. Hit all these other guys with Enfeeble as well. It'll reduce their damage. They will naturally die just by the massive AoE from all the other stuff, but we don't want them doing their full damage output. And so, Enfeeble them, and he is phased. Don't hit the beams. The beams also cause a degen, or at least stop you from regenning, and they can become problematic. So the mind game. So we've got top, right? So it's just simply what I call back and forth, where you start in one phase, move to the next, and then go back to the original position. So this is perfect, actually. Yeah, she starts off with that. Let's leave these down to the corner. Use the guard. You want to kill her quickly enough. You want to have the DPS that she doesn't bring all these orbs on top of you. If the fight goes on too long. So now we have to watch out for the suicide phase. We can leave these up here. That's fine. Get off the particular circle because that AoE will kill you. And then keep in mind where his beam starts at. So it starts there. And we're going to hit him with Assassin's Mark because we want to make sure we're doing critical strikes every single time. You can hit these other guys with those abilities. We'll hit them with the Enfeeble. Because the objective of the build is to basically have 100% increased strike chance. Well, not increased, but 100% critical strike chance. Because we want to make sure that we negate any of their resistances with every single strike we do. It's just part of the ascendancy for this one. So we start on the left, we do it around the horn, we keep going, and we keep going. So it's simply what I would call 2 around the horns. So around the horn is going from one side in a complete and full circle. Now we need to get to this here before that reaches the end, otherwise it'll blow up on you and kill you. Now, cast the guard, we can put these things down here. Haven't started off too hot damage-wise with this one. Don't stand in that, that's a massive physical damage AoE. We can take the scissor beam on this one, hit them with punishment because we want to kill her before. Lead these up to a corner, that's fine. Then get off the map, and then his AoE bomb comes in and clears a lot of it for you. So keep in mind where. Okay, good. So now we can hit him with punishment to really expedite this phase. The other idiots, his minions, I said idiots. His minions we can hit with Enfeeble, but he's going to die this next cast. So we need to watch out for these degens. This can be a problem, a huge problem if you get hit by these. So we need to see where it's at. Because if I get hit by these, so we're doing around the horn and back and forth. And back and forth. So we start here, go around the horn, and then a back and forth, back and forth. So we're going to hit him with Enfeeble to start. If we can get close to him and get him underneath the consecrated ground, I have it set up that consecrated ground causes additional damage. So now it's time for punishment. Maybe we'll get lucky and we can kill him before the next mind game. Using my guard. Almost walked into the beam that time. He's staying very close. Oh yeah, we got him. We got him. Look at that. Nice and easy. I have died to him before. Oh, there we go. And so I have died to him before only because I got hit by the oscillating beams. And it took my life down to nothing. And then you have 1 HP. And he auto-attacks you once, or if you touch something else, and you just die. So let's go ahead and put all the loot in here. And let's go on to the last fight. So far, not bad. Only 1 death, and quite frankly, it's entirely my fault. Somebody else doing this could have done a much better job. And so, I feel like I did a pretty good job avoiding the oscillating beams. I almost walked into them at least once, maybe twice, and if that had hit me, it may have been game over. But if I were to do it again, I would have a swap out potion where I remove burning on use. So in the event I do get hit with it, it'll just kick off righteous fire and not take my life down to 0. For the Uber version, I'll 100% have to do it. The big difference in the Uber version is that the Maven's Guardian with the 2 scissor beams that cut across the screen also causes that debuff. And it will prevent your life from regenerating for 10 seconds. And so Righteous Fire will take you down to 1. And that's at a phase where you don't want to have that because there's so many things happening on the map. You will get hit by an auto attack if you only have 1 HP, and you will not survive. And so that one will be a little more problematic if I don't have a flask like that. But let's do Cirrus. Cirrus? Whatever his name is. I know. It's probably, I think it's Cyrus. So we're going to get our inspiration charges up a bit. I'm going to hit him. Where is he? Oh, there he is. Did he move down here? Okay. He is dodgy sometimes. To use the guard skill. His die beam's not too terribly problematic. He has his version above him that casts those spells. Stay out of those massive AoEs. I could probably tank it, but it's not worth trying. So there's not much he can do to kill me, I think. I don't think he has enough alpha damage for a max damage hit to kill me with a lot of these basic abilities. Doesn't mean you want to just stand around and get hit by them, because you never know when the crit chance, will occur and potentially cause enough to be problematic for you. Those cause... Okay, I can't get quite underneath him enough. There we go. Okay. To trigger his phases, to get him to come down off of his chair, you have to get underneath him. And sometimes it's hard because he's got his clouds that are hovering directly underneath him. On the non-Uber version, it's very easy to dodge his die beam. His tracking gets a lot better on the Uber version, and it does a lot more damage. So I can just casually walk around, just kind of do a quick crisscross or a juke step, whatever you want to call it, and be able to dodge the die beam. The die beam's wide enough and he tracks well enough that if you don't do a good dodge, he'll hit you with it, and that hits you with pretty sure every type of elemental damage, even some physical, and maybe even some chaos. There we go, I got him triggered. Stay away from the clouds if you don't have high regen. Okay, so I don't want to get hit by that. That'll be problematic if I do. So yeah, dodge that one. Oop. That was probably the easiest meteor walk out of all time. And we faced him. Looking good so far. So now we're on the final phase. So the final phase is a little more complicated. I'll talk about it over here. For those of you who have never gone through this fight before, or if you're still relatively new and trying to figure out how he functions. So when he comes back down, he's at 25% life now. He'll come back down and go back up to 75% life. During that phase, he'll start doing a couple things. He'll no longer send back up into the air, at least not the way that he did for these phases and cast storms. What's going to happen is there's going to be a few more ground degens on the ground. And he'll have a star phase where he summons clones of himself, and you can see which one he is based upon the HP pool above his head, and target him, and they focus beams into the middle. And after a few seconds, those beams begin to turn into an X pattern. On the Uber version, there's a 5th beam, maybe a 6th. I think it's maybe a 5th. And it's a little more difficult to dodge. You don't want to get hit by the beams because it hits you with a debuff that when he does strike you the next time, he does significantly more damage. During that phase, then he'll go into a mass circle. like a big ring, and he'll say, feel the void, and he casts a super die beam at you. It's very precise, can be tough to dodge. If you find yourself dying to that beam, when you hear him say feel the void, if you're quick enough, you can get far enough off screen that he'll go through that phase and never fire his die beam at you, and you can survive it. At least you could when I played in 3.18. But what's a bummer with the guard skill is I'll use the guard skill to survive that beam, and then he almost immediately follows it up with a second die beam after that. So you have to be a little bit quick on the toes to be able to dodge that one, unless you can just face tank it. On the Uber version, it's very difficult to build a character to face tank both. When I ran Molten Shell was a little bit better in the regard that it has a much longer duration, and so it had enough HP where it could tank the first die beam, and there's still some left over, and with the duration, it could take the second die beam. With Steel Skin, with 2.6, it's not going to be fast enough, which is why I'm kind of curious to play around with reduce the cooldown on your guard skills, even though it cuts the duration in half, because maybe I could cast it once immediately to survive the first die beam, and the cooldown might be good enough. I could cast it a second time for the second die beam. But yeah, so Feel the Void. He will be dancing around quite a bit. It can be hard to track him, so if you're a short-range character or melee character, it can be hard to lock him down. But just stay on top of him. Do your best to try to avoid the beams when he cuts in that phase. There's going to be a meteor phase that's going to be 3 walls instead of 2. So he still has that. I want to hit him with Enfeeble. You don't want to stand in there. I have a lot of regen, and I still don't want to stand in there. So here it is, Everlasting Fire. He's up here. So, okay. Okay, we got lucky, I think. We blocked it, because I'm running Tempest Shield as well. And with Tempest Shield, I have a... Okay, so... I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this one. Oof. I'll need to up my movement speed if I'm going to fight the Uber version. Because the Uber version, you have a lot less time. So don't stand in the middle. I cast my guard. So he's going to do this crap again. There we go. I lost sight of him. See, that beam does a lot of damage. Okay, I was not wanting this actually at this... Okay, easy exit. So, we're going to kill him with this next cast. He's really wanting to make it challenging. Okay, we're going to run off screen while our guard comes on cooldown. Come back on. There we go. Look at that. Not too bad. No good drops. That's okay. We beat him. We did it. And the only death we had was against the Syrian Exarch, and it wasn't even to his fireball phase, which is the only one that usually kills me. The only reason I died to that was 100% user error. And so, as you can see, I feel like it's pretty strong. It's a very strong build, has a lot of survivability, does a good amount of damage. The alpha damage is exactly what I've envisioned thus far. Just to give you an idea, so against a single target AoE that's at full health, the alpha damage is about 1.5. So if I land all 4 strikes on him, it's about 6. With punishment, it goes up to about 2.2. The end game plan, if I've built it out correctly in Path of Building, and if I can find the appropriate gear, it's going to take probably 60 to 70 divines more to do it. Not terrible, but it's a lot of grinding, and not everybody's going to have time for something like that throughout the league. But if you can do it, endgame goal is going to be about 8 million a bounce for the initial bounce. And so a full bounce would be, or like a full set of bounces on the same target, should be around 30 million, 32 million. So it's got, roughly a 5x, almost a 5.5x multiplier. It can go up. And a lot of that's going to come from empowering the chest piece and dropping the low life, doing pain attunement. I'll also add determination for more physical damage, resistance, and survivability. And the melting of the flesh will get my resistances up to a higher point. So even though I'll have less overall HP, I should technically be tankier in terms of the max damage per hit and survivability. And regen, the regen will be more effective because I will be tankier. But yeah, end game goal is to get about 8 to 9 million on the first bounce. And so part of the reason why this isn't about the cast speed wouldn't really help me out a whole lot because I need to wait for these seals to charge up. Once I get an awakened, that will bump me up another 25%. So that one alone, getting the awakened unleash support, will bump me up to about, on Path of Building, about 1.9, I think somewhere around there, almost 2. And so there's some pretty sizable upgrades coming up. And Awakened Unleash, I think, is running between 4 and 4.5 divines. The armor, I may just have to wait later in the league. I'm not interested in spending 35 divines. I will if I have to. I will get to that point. But yeah, I'm loving the build so far. It's been a great deal of fun. I think it's going to be an absolute monster of a bosser, especially once I get that damage up. Eventually, the goal is for the non-noobers to just phase them with a single cast. Just one big heavy cast, let them get hit by all the strikes, and they're phased. If I get up to the 32 million-ish damage for a full series of bounces, it'll do a really good job against the Ubers as well. You don't need that much damage to fight the Ubers. When I beat the Ubers last time, to feel comfortable with it, damage-wise, against regular Guardian bosses, if you're calculated around 3.5 to 4.5 million damage, it'll be a long fight. You'll have to go through a lot of phases, so you'll have to have some serious tanking or just be very good mechanically. And so 3.5 to 4.5 million damage against a regular Guardian will pretty much do the trick. It's still tough, and you may still have fights where you may not beat them because the more phases you go through, the more opportunity you have to get killed. It wasn't until I hit about 7 or 8 million DPS that it started to feel pretty good. The way that this works, it's not really about the DPS, it's about that burst damage. My listed DPS is 700k, 600k. I mean, that's low for DPS. It's the burst damage, and that's what I'm going for. And I just wanted to do something different, loving it this far. If you have any questions, if you've made it this far into the video, definitely feel free to leave a comment or ask a question. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for being here.